So one of my viewers asked me my view on the Hoteps, particularly somebody named Jesus Hotep, or Hotep Jesus. I think it's Hotep Jesus. I just looked into it. I watched a few of his videos last night. He's a big fan of Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey was a black National Socialist. Okay? Now, what does that mean? It means that literally he embraced similar things as National Socialism, as was embraced by Germany. Okay, I can't say I disagree with Marcus Garvey's view for helping his own people, but this is the mistake I don't make that other people make, like Tom Metzger. And actually I do, that reminds me, I want to do a video in memory of Tom Metzger. Tom Metzger was a wonderful individual that gave himself to help white America. And he recently passed away last year. He was a prominent Democratic politician, and he was also the founder of WAR, White Aryan Resistance. And he was also a former Grand Dragon of such and such, but I don't want to say the name of that organization because it might get my video banned. But he also had a show. I might, if I remember, I'll leave a link to the show in the description. He used to have a show called Race and Reason on cable access television. It was a wonderful show. It was available on YouTube for a while, and he was also interviewed by people like Whoopi Goldberg, which is a wonderful interview. If you get a chance to watch it, I might leave a link to that too. It's a Whoopi Goldberg interviews Tom Metzger. It's a great interview. And he was also instrumental, I think, in pushing forward Radio Werewolf, the band headed by Nicholas Schreck, who was the son-in-law of Anton Sandor LaVey, who was married to Zena LaVey, or Zena Schreck. But getting back to the Hoteps, essentially, as I said, they're big fans of Marcus Garvey. Unlike other people, this is the thing, I'm not crazy like a lot of the other people, like even George Lincoln Rockwell and, as I just said, Tom Metzger. And their problems were, like with George Lincoln Rockwell, it was the Nation of Islam. He loved him some Elijah Muhammad, okay? And that was the thing. And I can respect Elijah Muhammad, and I can respect Malcolm X based on their viewpoints. But that does not mean that I would ever support them. And the same thing is true with Tom Metzger in his view of Marcus Garvey. He would talk at length about Marcus Garvey. In fact, Tom Metzger even spoke before the new Black Panther Party. And I think that this is the kind of ridiculousness that comes back to bite people in their asses. Okay, it really does. There's no need for whites to prostrate themselves before any other group of people. And having a common enemy with a group of people does not make that group of people your ally. Okay? That's the lesson that we should all learn from World War II. Okay? Simply because, simply because we had a common ally with England did not make Germany our enemy. So it's kind of a bit of the reverse. But the thing is, having a common enemy does not make somebody your ally. So with the Black Panther Party and other things, a lot of white social activists and white civil rights activists, and David Duke makes this mistake with Muslims a lot, because you have a common enemy in the radical Zionists does not make these people your friends. Okay? I can respect and feel bad for Islamic people like the Palestinians and things like that. That does not make them my allies. Okay? It does not make them my allies. And that's the problem, is people don't understand that. Now, Palestine is not strictly Islamic. There's Druze and Christians there too. But my point is that just because you share a common enemy with somebody does not make them your ally. And unfortunately, conservatives love to prostrate themselves before the black community when they find a black that agrees with them. But what you always find, now I've watched some of this Hotep Jesus dude's videos, and what you have to keep in mind is they embrace conservatism for their people. Not for us, for their people. Now, he seems to be talking a lot of Candace Owens kind of nonsense, but look at what Candace Owens really supported. Candace Owens supported letting criminals out of prison under the First Step Act, which most likely bolstered the Black Lives Matter rioters by allowing more of them out of prison to join these riots. Candace Owens supported giving incarcerated felons the right to vote under the pretense that they would vote Republican, which we all know they wouldn't. And even if they did, if the Republican Party gives up everything that makes it the Republican Party, which it has done, and the only way to get support of these groups is to give up what values you have, you cease to be the Republican Party, and the Republican Party has ceased to be the Republican Party. This goes into Trumpism. Now, when I saw what Candace Owens was about, and this is the thing that you have to watch with these people, these conservatives, if you look at what they're doing, they're pushing the same stuff as the others, but they're wrapping it in conservatism. They're hiding it in conservatism. A good example is Thomas Sowell, who wrote a book about how, certain people aren't as bright because of environment and blah, blah, blah. Basically, he's pushing Soviet Lysenkoism, and white conservatives are eating it up because they're saying, this guy's a conservative. He's on our side. He agrees with us. He's greedy too. And that's basically like what people don't understand. Conservatism is more than capitalism. And that's all that the Republican Party is now. And it's not even capitalism. It's just greed. It's how much of the people's money can they pump into their own pockets. That's it. And use, and this is where the other people come, or use to build up certain communities that did nothing to deserve this building up. So a lot of this Hotep Jesus stuff is basically conspiracy theories, which are not new to me. I mean, if anything, this is similar to, I don't know if anybody remembers MOVE, the MOVE organization in Philadelphia that was bombed by Wilson Goode, or what was the other one? The Black Hebrew Israelites are another example. Any type of this Pan-Africanism. It's not any different than any of this other Pan-Africanism in any way. Okay, it has a lot of mythology, a lot of lies that put black people above other people. Just like what we complain about with, say, Zionism, okay, or Talmudism, the belief in the Talmud, which puts those people above other people based on a false sense of supremacy because they're chosen by a made-up God. It's the same nonsense. But the Hoteps seem to use Egyptian stuff. Now, what's funny is, as a former Talimite, like I've said, I'm a former Talimite, which was a follower of the religion of Aleister Crowley, which is based very heavily in Egyptian protocols, Egyptian mystery schools. Okay, now they claim to be Atenists. Some of these people claim to be Atenists, which are people that worship the Aten. The Aten is the solar disk. That was the god it was the monotheistic deity that was created by Akhenaten, who was the father of Tutankhamun. Now, Akhenaten, what's funny is Savitra Devi, who people don't know who Savitra Devi is. They should find out who she is. They should read all of her books. She's a wonderful person. A lot of people don't understand a lot of the things that people attribute to liberalism, such as conservationism, animal rights activism, women's rights, all this stuff. This all comes from National Socialism. Okay? It really does. Not communism, not these things. It comes from National Socialism. A lot of it was originated right from Germany, okay? But Savitra Devi, who herself was an ethical vegetarian and a Hindu, was also she wrote a number of good books, and one of them was The Son of the Sun, which is a book about Akhenaten. Now, one of the things that people don't understand about Akhenaten is Akhenaten, in my opinion, was not a really amazing pharaoh. Why do I say he was not an amazing pharaoh? Atenism, the religion of Atenism, is very interesting. I think it's very interesting. In fact, it's influenced a lot of my personal beliefs in pantheism. But what Akhenaten did is he moved the capital of Egypt from Thebes to a mountainous region that did not have access to the Nile River. Now, anybody that is familiar with Egyptian history and the long-standing reliance on the ebb and flow of the Nile River, and how the rich, fertile soil, which is actually where Egypt gets its name Khmer, which means black earth, okay, it's from the soil, the sediment from the flooding and the withdrawing of the Nile River, which fertilized the crops of the Egyptians, which were things like wheat and things of that nature, which most Egyptians lived off of beer and bread, which was a horrible diet, of course, but most Egyptians lived off of beer and bread, which in turn was why many of them were fat, okay? But the fact of the matter is, when you move a society that is so dependent upon the Nile River away from the Nile, which is what Akhenaten did, of course you're going to be visited by a lot of very severe problems, social problems, economic problems, etc., which is what happened. He crashed Egypt. But his religious contributions to Egypt, which were simply replaced back with the old gods, which, what cracks me up with Egypt, I think it was Xenophiles, I forget how to say his name. It's where we get the word xenophobia from. But I think it was he who said that if horses had hands, they would carve their gods to look like horses instead of men. And that man makes gods in man's image. And this is very true. But with Egyptian history, religious history, it's funny because they get rid of gods, they merge gods into other gods, and blah, 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 blah. And it gets you to think, somewhere along the line, the people should have wised up and been like, yeah, this is total nonsense. But they weren't, okay? But the thing is, what I'm getting at here is this worship of Akhenaten is kind of ridiculous. And then they get their name, allegedly, the Hoteps get their name from Imhotep, who was the architect of the pyramids. So when people say aliens built the pyramids, no, they were designed by Imhotep. Okay? Now, Imhotep, most people probably remember Imhotep as the mummy from the movie The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. And if mummification did work, and if Imhotep was ever resurrected, he was probably like, yo guys, that ain't cool. That ain't how I was. I never ate nobody's face, man. I was a doctor. I was a physician and an architect, man. And that's what I think. I think that's how Imhotep would have seen the horrible depiction of him in that Brendan Fraser movie, or movies. I think there was 2 of them. But my point is that Imhotep is not even from the Amara period, where Akhenaten was the pharaoh. He's from another period where Djoser was the pharaoh. So he's not even in the same era. He's not an Atenist. He was a pre-Atenist, meaning he was a believer in the old gods of Egypt, like Osiris and Isis and Bastet and all, the traditional gods, Anubis, Seth. These people, these are all the original deities of ancient Egypt, not the Aten. Okay, so Imhotep has nothing to do with the Aten disk. Okay? Now, later, after they reintroduced the old gods back in, they did keep the Aten, and it's sometimes referred to as Aten Ra. Now, Aten Ra means what it sounds like. Ra means power in Egypt. And one of these days I'll get into a whole Talmudic thing about the different times a day where you pray to the directions and things, and what Ra and all that means. But Ra means power. Ra is also the name of the pre-Aten sun god. But the sun god as Aten represents far more than a mere sun god. It is where all life emanates from, is what the Aten is. So essentially, long story short, before I make this video like 2 hours because I love Egyptian history, I'll cut to the chase here. The Hoteps are basically a group of African Americans that are Pan-Africanist. This is the gist I get from it. I'm not saying this is cut and dry. They're a group of Pan-Africanist African Americans that are trying to use Trumpism, and not conservatism, Trumpism, okay, as a springboard to take over and or empower the black community, put blacks at the top and whites at the bottom. That's what I get from the things that I've watched. They're also very heavy believers in all kinds of conspiracy theories, from QAnon to the Illuminati to everything you get, the Freemasons and this and that, and Now, closing. People that think Trumpism is conservatism should take note of the fact that Trumpians are working to get Caitlyn Jenner, Bruce Jenner, known to those of us that used to eat Wheaties back in the day, Bruce Jenner, who now calls himself Caitlyn Jenner. They're trying to get him elected as governor. They're talking about getting him elected as governor of California. Now keep in mind, Caitlyn Jenner was a supporter of Donald Trump. Keep that in mind. Bruce Jenner was a fan of Donald Trump because Donald Trump called Bruce and or Caitlyn Jenner or whatever the heck that they could use the bathroom in Trump Tower. And if you remember in an interview, Caitlyn Jenner stated exactly what Republicanism is. Heartless, cold-hearted greed about coming out on top. More money in her pocket is what Caitlyn Jenner is all about. Okay? And that's what this is what Republicanism has come in the United States. It has nothing to do with the values or Americanism anymore, or the Constitution or anything else. If it did have to do with the Constitution, you would not have seen an insurrection, which, by the way, was organized by Ali Alexander, which sought to overthrow this country. Now, I have my own conspiracy theories regarding Trump and BLM. If you follow it, prior to the BLM thing, Candace Owens, Jared Kushner, Kanye West, and Kim Kardashian got Trump to reverse the Biden crime bill and let tens of thousands of dangerous predominantly black criminals out of prison, who then most likely bolstered the ranks of the BLM rioters, and immediately Trump passed an executive order which disallowed police to use chokeholds and other forms of restraint against criminals, and also disallowed them from shooting into moving vehicles to stop criminals from attacking them, like just happened in D.C. So, and then you have an insurrection planned by a dude, Ali Alexander, who it seems was very pro-Trump. The Hoteps are pro-Trump. Trump had support by members of the Black Hebrew Israelites and the Black Panther Party. Blacks for Trump was run by a guy named Michael the Black Man, who is a former black supremacist and a member of the Yahweh Ben Yahweh cult, which again seems similar to Pan-Africanism. If you ask me, it seems like Trump was trying to basically, or not, maybe not Trump, maybe Candace Owens or one of these people. It seems to me that there was perhaps a conspiracy to overthrow the government and install a black supremacist government in the United States. That's just, or at least a government that would give blacks everything that they believe they deserve. And that's what it seems like to me. And also, you have to understand, the Hoteps are anti-gay and they're pro-conservative. However, they support a guy, Donald Trump, that openly supports homosexuality, openly supports transgenderism, and who has people working to help Caitlyn Jenner, who is a transgendered individual. And I've said this before, I have a friend that's transgendered, a real friend, who I plan to see after this pandemic passes, okay, that I genuinely respect. I don't have anything against trans people. But the thing is, in my opinion, you don't call yourself a conservative. You don't say you embrace conservative values if you're supporting things like Caitlyn Jenner, who is obviously mentally and emotionally unstable. Okay, if you watch the trial where she shows up because he ran over a pedestrian as Bruce Jenner and then states that Bruce Jenner isn't here. Okay, you would not, if you're a genuine conservative that cares about Americanism, you would not support transgenderism at all if you're an Americanist. Transgenderism is anti-Americanism. It is against the culture that this country was founded on. Number one. Okay? And I know what people are saying. Well, you said you have a friend that's transgendered, blah, 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 blah. I can have a friend that is transgender and not support transgenderism. I like the individual for their intellect and who they are as a person, not who they are with what what their personal beliefs are with that type of thing or what they did. And my thing is I actually am neutral on transgenderism, and I will make a video about this. I see it like body modification, like tattooing, in my opinion, but I'm not a conservative, I'm a progressive. In my opinion, any adult should have the right to change their body in any way they see fit. Okay, an adult, a consenting adult, not anybody under the age of 18. And I believe that it should be outlawed. Hormone blockers and things like that should be outlawed for use in children. It's ridiculous, okay? But, long story short, clearly a group like the Hoteps that supports Donald Trump are supporting conservatism amongst themselves, quite like Talmudists do, okay? So they support conservatism amongst themselves, but liberalism amongst the whites. And that's because it will weaken the whites. And that's all for this video. That's my conspiratorial ramblings. And follow the links. Please follow the links so you know that at least some of the stuff I say makes sense.